So the very last course topic that we will cover for pre-algebra is the rectangular coordinate system. And you'll do a lot more of this when you get into algebra. Okay, but I think what happens with this when after people have been working with this coordinate system for a long time is they lose sight of what it really is, right? The coordinate axes are really just two number lines that are drawn perpendicular to each other. And what does perpendicular mean? It means they form a right angle. So what ends up happening is they're going to cross at a single point, and the single point at which they cross is going to be called the origin. And the one that you draw horizontally is going to be called the x-axis, and then the number line that you draw vertically is going to be called the y-axis. So then what's going to happen is any point on the flat surface, and that flat surface is going to be known as the coordinate plane, right? Because a plane is just a flat two-dimensional surface, can be written as an ordered pair, which we'll call a coordinate, of the form x comma y inside parentheses. All right, and the nice thing about it is all the points in this coordinate plane are going to be named with respect to how far they are to the right or left of the origin and how far above or below the origin they are. All right, so the x coordinate is going to tell you how far right or left of the origin they are, and the y coordinate is going to tell you how far above or below the origin the point is. Okay, so how would we draw a set of coordinate axes? We would just do this. Okay, we'd set up two lines that are going to become our number lines, one running horizontally and one running vertically. And remember, we're going to call the one that runs horizontally the x-axis, and the one that runs vertically we're going to call the y-axis. And remember, it's a number line, and the point where they cross is going to be the origin. So that's your origin point right there. And the coordinates of the origin are going to be 0, 0. And then you just start numbering it, right? So how does a number line work? 0 is right there in the middle, and then as you go to the right, you're going to have positive numbers, and as you go to the left, you're going to have negative numbers. So this is your x-axis number line, and then the vertical one is going to be your y-axis number line, and again, it's where they cross, that's 0, and as you go up, that's going to be positive, and as you go down, it's going to be negative. So then what happens is any point that lies in this coordinate plane, you'll name with respect to how far it is to the right or left, and then above or below that origin point, right? So what you have here is you have these four little areas of this coordinate plane, which are known as quadrants. So over here to the top right, you have what's called quadrant 1, and then you go counterclockwise from there. So this one to the top left is going to be quadrant 2, and then bottom left is quadrant 3, and then bottom right is quadrant 4. So any point that's in quadrant 1, since you went right and up to get to that point from the origin, the x coordinate is going to be positive and the y coordinate is going to be positive. In quadrant 2, you went left and up, so x is going to be negative and y is going to be positive. Quadrant 3, you went left and down, so both x and y are going to be negative. And quadrant 4, you went right and down, so x is going to be positive and y is going to be negative. Right? So it just depends on what direction you go. If you go right, x is positive. If you go left, x is negative. If you go up, y is positive. If you go down, y is negative. Okay? So that's your basic coordinate plane, right? You've got your origin where the number lines cross. You've got your x and y axes, and you have the four quadrants. Now that we have the concept down of what the coordinate plane is and how you name points in that coordinate plane, we can actually do some practice examples here. So basically, we're just going to be doing two things, right? We're going to be plotting points, and we're going to be naming points that are already plotted for us. So in this first little activity here, we have to plot the points, right? Graph the points. So we're going to graph these ordered pairs on the axes below and label them. So point A, they're telling us, is negative 3, 2, right? So x is negative 3, and y is 2. So negative 3 means we go left 3, right? We start at the origin always. Negative 3 means we go left 3, and then positive 2 means we go up 2. So we arrive here at this point, which we'll label A, and it's negative 3, 2, right? So that was in the second quadrant because we went left and up. Now point B, again, same idea. X is 4, Y is 1. So X being 4 tells us we go 4 to the right, and then Y being 1 tells us we go up 1. So I went right and up, so I'm in the first quadrant, and there's my point B. And now point C is -1, -3. So -1 tells me I go left 1, and -3 tells me I go down 3. So I arrive here in the third quadrant, and that's my point C. And then point D, X is 4, Y is -2. So now I go 4 to the right and down 2. 4 to the right, down 2, and there's my point D. Right? So you see how you're naming everything in relation to the origin. You always start at the origin, and that's why it's called the origin, right? It's the starting point. So there's your 4 points, A, B, C, and D. So now the reverse is they give us points plotted in the coordinate plane, and we have to name them, okay? So point A, how did we get to point A from the origin? We went 5 to the right, and we didn't go up or down at all. Okay, these are the ones that people tend to have trouble with. So you got to remember that you're always saying right or left first. So when I go to name point A, then, since I went 5 to the right, X is 5. And since I didn't go up or down at all, Y is 0. All right, point B, what did I do? I went left 4, and then I went up not even one full unit. So let's say I went up half a unit. So I went left 4 and up a half. So my point B is going to be -4, right? Because that was left 4, and then positive 1/2 because I went up 1/2. So point B is -4 1/2. Now point C, I don't go right or left at all, right? And that's always what you say first. So since I didn't go right or left at all, my X coordinate is 0. And then I went up 3. So it's 0, comma 3, right? I didn't go right or left, but I went up 3. Now point D is similar. I don't go right or left at all to get to it, so my X coordinate is still 0, but now I went down 1.5, so it's -1.5 or -3/2. Okay, because -3/2 is really -1.5. But when you write an ordered pair, you generally don't want to write a mixed number. I mean, you could write -1.5 there, but it's easier just to leave it as -3/2. So that was point D. And then point E, what did I do to get to it? I went over 3.5, it looks like, and then I went down. I went over to the right 3.5, and then I went down 6. So right 3.5 is 7/2. That's 3.5, and then I went down 6, so -6, right? Because again, remembering 7/2 is 3.5. All right, so that was my point E. And then my final point was point F. So how did I get to F from the origin? I went 6 to the left, right? So my X is -6, and then I didn't go up or down at all, so my Y is 0. And like I say, the ones that people have the most trouble with are these, because they end up switching where the 0 goes. But it's always right or left first, and then up or down. So if you didn't go right or left at all, X is 0. If you didn't go up or down at all, Y is 0. So you just got to keep those things straight. But otherwise, this is a fairly straightforward activity. Really all you're doing here is naming points and plotting points.